Right, so moving right out of that, since we're on the topic of Braun and stuff he's said and conversation surrounding GOAT James, I think I'm seeing more and more, and I think it started more along the time when Braun was battling with the Warriors. People would constantly be saying he has no help, he doesn't have enough help, to overcome whatever obstacle he's facing. And nowadays, I see them also putting this narrative on Luka, saying he doesn't have enough help. And to me, they use this. So this is the topic essentially. He has no help. I'm really sick and tired of hearing this, particularly with fans of Luka and LeBron. 'Cause it seemed like a massive coping mechanism for the failure of the player to get it done. And just to start off, to show personally how I view this, the player that made me start playing basketball, Tracy Mcgrady, never made it out of the first round of the playoffs. And I can remember right around when he was in Houston with Yao Ming, they're battling with injuries and all of that. And they're interviewing him right before the start of the playoffs, and they mentioned it, you've never made it out of the playoffs. Well, the first round. And he was like, you know what, blah, 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 whatever about the injuries or whatever. If we don't make it out the first round this time, it's on me. And he got really emotional and like walked out the interview, all kind of stuff. But to me, it just contrasts with what we're seeing today, where when your favorite player not getting to where you think he should get to, people are saying he doesn't have enough help. They're coming up with all the excuses. I would never give any excuses for McGrady. To me, he just wasn't the guy who I thought he was. Well, I admire him as a scorer, but at the time it was a comparison between him and Kobe. Obviously, he's not on Kobe's level because Kobe, even with no help, would at least get out of the first round. We're not going to take any excuses like that if you're supposed to be on Goat Mountain. Yeah, I mean, so to me, like for with LeBron, it's just too much scapegoating of his teammates and his team in general. When people do this, they'll say he doesn't have enough help in my. He himself came out and said this actually on his podcast that he
Yes.
didn't think the team was whole enough against the Mavs in 2011 to get it done. When really the only conversation to be had about that series is him averaging 17 points per game, totally below his average, and scoring 8 points in a game a whole 48 minutes, you know what I'm saying? And like disappearing in fourth quarters. That's the only conversation to be had. It makes no sense to even move past that to me when you're talking about that series. So like yeah, to me, I really hate hearing this type of thing. And with Luca, now they use this, in my opinion, to account for how low the Mavericks seed going into the playoffs every year. And ultimately, that is important to the argument of him being an MVP candidate. So they want to give Luca the MVP when he doesn't even make it in the play in, which means you did not even finish in 10th place. Luca fans want him to win MVP, finish in 11th place. It's just insane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I definitely don't think Luca has the team to win a championship, right? But as it pertains to getting a higher seeding and subsequently being a legit MVP candidate, that excuse to me is just ridiculous. You can't say he doesn't have enough help to finish at least sixth if he had Kyrie Irving, if he's played with Kyrie Irving, Jalen Brunson as decent enough role players. I mean, there's so many players who did make the team get in those type of positions with not so whole teams. James Harden has done it. Westbrook has done it. There's so many people who can at least get the team to the sixth place. It's just ridiculous to me. So let me hear how you
Yeah,
look
no.
at
So when you're
this
talking
whole
about the
thing.
bag, brother, we're not even talking about the bag, but after the bag, we're talking about in terms of does these players have like enough help and like the whole talk around that. When it comes to Miami, I have to go back to the whole bag situation because to me, he
Mm,
was saying the team wasn't whole, right? But I
right,
really think that LeBron as a player wasn't whole enough to get them to that point. So yeah, the
right,
team wasn't whole, but it wasn't because you didn't have the pieces around you. that team, Miami, you had Chris Bosh All Star, Dwayne Wade All Star. All of these guys were USA Olympians. They were picked for the team. So it obviously show you that these are the best of the best. Three of the top 10 to top 15 players there. That was a good enough team. You didn't just have those players also. You had decent role players. You had I think what's his name? The guy who used to play Rashard Lewis was on that team that lost at first.
Oh no, I don't think he was.
Or it probably
I
was
think
after that, but they had a few
yeah.
other players there at least. And even with
Hmm.
that three enough, you definitely had enough to get there. And against just a team with one All Star, whether it's a Hall of Fame player in Dirk itself, it should have been enough to get over the hump. So, in terms of needing help, LeBron can't use that as an excuse. We did have a super team and they failed, but it takes a time for a team to build chemistry. But they had the players there, but they needed to build more chemistry, and he needed to become the player that he became afterwards. But in terms of Luka, I don't know. I have to look at the West. I have to look at his competition for me to deem whether or not he has enough help. For me,
No.
I think he has the most help he's ever had right now with Kyrie and the way Kyrie is playing at an exceptional level. Um, the team
Mm.
itself is about fifth in the league, but they're on the middle pages, fifth or sixth in the league right now. In
Yeah.
terms of MVP discussion, it's not going to be Luka for me. It's not enough for him to be MVP. You want them to be in the top three at least to discuss MVP. His stats are astounding when you look at the numbers of it. Um, he's offensively, he's a great player. No one can deny that. But the jury's out on the man defense if he's good enough to play that as well. On a
Hmm.
championship level and for the playoffs. So for me, LeBron, you had help. Luca, not so much for me, but the playoffs we're gonna see. People normally rise to the playoff occasion, and maybe Luca can propel his team to NBA Finals, and then we won't have to have this conversation.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you just said. 99% of it, just a slight difference in opinion about the Miami Heat being having enough chemistry in that first year. Because to me, they had enough chemistry to make it to the finals. They had enough
Mhm.
chemistry to go 2-1 up. So all they had to do was just cross the finish line. It kind of seems like you're in a race, you get to the 70 meter mark, and then you pull up and you just fizzle out. So, that's the only difference in opinion I'd say there.